Hey, it's Caleb back again. I wasn't going to make an intro for this video. I was just going to roll straight into the interview. But I really wanted to kind of give you an idea of what you're in for with this video because Chris Wilder is not someone who's super well known. You probably had never heard of him before, but he is just a really wonderful magician. If you haven't already, check out the previous video I did with him where we really dive deep into the business side of magic. And that combined with this conversation has totally changed how I look at business, and that's not exaggeration. That's just true. So look, if you are a magician and you want to do it full time or you want to earn more money from it, I think you'll get a lot of value out of this. And also, if you just like listening to two passionate magicians talk about magic and other things, yeah, I hope you enjoy this. I won't ramble on any longer. But yeah, enjoy this video. Chris is an absolute legend, so please go support him down below. All of his links are there. He's a really good friend of mine, so I know he'd appreciate it. Well, if you haven't seen the video that was posted earlier this week, this is Chris Wilder. And yeah, Chris is a great friend of mine. We're at his house at the moment in this beautiful studio. You can't see it, but this is like my kind of place. There's a lot of very cool posters and things hanging up, and it's a very great space. But yeah, I first met Chris when I first came to Nottingham, which actually, no, before then, I was planning to move to the UK, and I got a message from this random Instagram account, the Curious Cabaret, and I'd never heard of them, and it was Chris, and he said, well, I've seen that you're coming to the UK, do you want to come and perform? And I was like, yes, please. And I remember this really well being like quite a significant thing for me, because I was like, I haven't even left the country yet, and I've already got somewhere to perform, and it was very like confidence boosting for me. And then I arrived in Nottingham, performed, and it was awesome. I met Matt, I met all the other Nottingham guys, and now I live here. So obviously they made a good impression. But yeah, since then we've kind of gotten to know each other better since I moved over here from Spain, and I really wanted to, ever since I started thinking about this idea of this like conversation interview series, I really wanted to get you on because yeah, the whole point of the series is looking at kind of all the different things that different people excel at. You know, everyone has their own strengths and their own things that they're really good at. And like I said in the previous video, one of the things I think you're really good at is the business side of magic. So hence why we've just done a whole video on that subject. But yeah, I'm also keen to just dig into Chris Wilder. Who is Chris Wilder? You know, like where did you start off, and how did you get into magic? So you can take it away. I'll enjoy my drink.
Yeah. So my story of magic begins when I was about 9 years old, and I had the unusual proposition of becoming an assistant to a magician. So there was a guy, he'd retired, but he was a magician, decided to put on a charity show for the church that we belonged to, and he needed 3 female assistants and a little boy, basically. And I was the little boy that was asked to come and join the show. And I very enthusiastically said yes. And that was sort of my first peek behind the curtain into the world of magic. I think I'd probably seen a few tricks or something from family members, kind of card tricks and things like that. Maybe that's why they'd seen they'd seen that I was interested perhaps at that stage. But this was my first sort of exposure to the professional industry of magic rather than just tricks. And so I started going around for rehearsals, started learning some of the aspects of stagecraft and how you hold yourself on stage, how you walk on stage, carrying props, little bits of scripting, and got to see a little bit behind the curtains of how different illusions and different tricks worked. And it was great fun. And I think from there on, I think that was when I fell in love with theatre. And I think to this day, there's something for me very exciting about being in the wings of a stage and the kind of the sights, the smells, the sounds of that industry. It's just very, very exciting and very much my happy place. So that's how I started in magic. And then through being involved in this show as an assistant, started to meet other magicians. They took me along to, as a thank you after the first show we did, they took us along to an IBM show. I think it was an IBM show. And it was a whole gala. So there was, so people Ali Bongo. So these are kind of this is going to show my age now. There was Ali Bongo was closing the show. There was Alan Shaxson. Faye Presto was the compere for the show. Who else was in that? I can't remember some of the other names. Those are the three that kind of stand out to me immediately. Largely because when I was there, actually Faye picked me from the audience for her opening routine, which was a brainwave deck routine. She picked me as the child of the audience to name a card from an invisible deck. And just completely fooled the pants off me. Like given the fact that the most of the card tricks I'd seen were like pick a card. Oh look, it's the wrong way around in the deck. The kind of tricks I mean. I remember I was like, but I just thought of the three of spades on the spur of the moment. How on earth did it end up the wrong? And it's the wrong colour in the deck. It was yeah. So that was something I never found out how that thing worked until I was about 15. So yeah, that was a really kind of key moment, I think, in kind of hooking me into the world of magic. And then I became interested in kind of magic growing up. I kind of read things like Mark Williamson's Guide to Magic. I watched all the Lance Burton TV specials and used to try and copy all of Lance's tricks that I could. And then David Blaine came onto the scene in the 90s, and that's when I really got interested in cards sleight of hand and started. I sort of taught myself sleight of hand by watching David Blaine on repeat.
Wow. Like
slow motion. How did this? Okay, like that's how it works. And that's how a lot of the sleight of hand I learned where it came from.
Wow.
And so yeah, that was sort of the journey into magic. Bearing in mind that in all this time I lived in the southwest corner of Wales, the only magician I knew was this guy who had asked me to be his assistant. I had a few friends who did a few tricks or anything, but no one who was obsessed with it as I was. And it wasn't until I moved to Nottingham for university that I met a few friends who were equally interested. I met a guy called Chris Raven, who became a really good friend. We met at university. He came along to we would do like a Christian Union meeting at the Halls of Residence in Nottingham. And I thought, I'll do a couple of tricks. Nobody really knew that I did magic. So I'll do something. So I did a trick, which is kind of only a trick I really do when I roll out for magicians, because it's kind of one of those things where magicians go, oh, what? And I didn't know he was a magician at the time, and he happened to be there and was a little bit caught off guard, I think, by it, and it was quite satisfying. Chris is a lovely guy. I've not spoken to him in a while, actually. Must catch up with him. But he and I and a few others, we decided to set up the University of Nottingham Magic Society, and that's when we started really getting to know lots of other magicians. And then Nottingham's been my home ever since. So that's kind of how I got into the world of magic. But I didn't become a professional magician. I did a degree in engineering and then pursued a career in science education. And then it wasn't until after sort of 10 years in education, I then became a full-time performer.
And we'll definitely dive into the transition from that at some point. And I realised I probably should have started with this actually. But could you kind of talk a little bit about what that has turned into now? Like what are you involved in? How might people know you in today's magic scene?
Yeah. So, very underground.
Oh yeah, super underground.
Yeah. Largely because I'm terrible at social media.
It's not a bad thing, to be honest.
Yeah. So I came into the professional world of I'd kind of worked professionally as a magician, like semi-professionally, I guess, since I was at university, and then even when I was working as a teacher, I still did magic in the background. But it wasn't a serious, saying, if you haven't watched the other video, watch the other video.
Yeah.
I wasn't really serious about being that person, kind of embodying that business and that kind of performance side of being a magician. And it was only when I then left teaching, I reduced my hours gradually. I went from 5 days to 4 days to 3 days, and then gradually built up my business before then leaving teaching completely and doing it full time. And when I came into that industry, I fairly naively came in thinking, I'm going to be a gigging, performing magician, but I didn't quite have a niche. I didn't quite know what it was that I wanted to do in magic. I knew I didn't want to do children's magic. I knew I wanted to perform for adults. And over time that's grown to be, as I've kind of played and discovered what it is that I'm good at and tried different things, it's become what it is now. So a long way round of saying I'm the host and producer of a show called the Curious Cabaret. Yeah, which Caleb's been involved in, and is a show that's hopefully, well, it is a growing show. It started off as a sort of labour of love and as a way of giving magicians the opportunity to perform. Like, where do you get the opportunity to perform stage or parlour magic in the UK?
Yeah.
As if you are, if you're learning the ropes, there aren't, there's not loads like comedy clubs and things like that you can do it. So we created this event. It wasn't called the Curious Cabaret to start with. It was called the Understudy, and it was in like a really, what can I say? It was in a little cellar of a bar in the middle of Nottingham, and it grew from that into the Curious Cabaret as a chance to give members of the public, a chance to see really good live magic and to work with magicians. And it's now become, post-pandemic, it's become sort of a full ticketed show, not just like an open mic night, but is a full ticketed produced show, and is growing. So we're looking to open other venues. Ultimately, later on along the lines, we're hoping to have our own venue for magic. I know there's a few places like that in the UK that are doing really well. So there's Smoke and Mirrors in Bristol, Mark Bennett's place, that's doing really well. Magician's Table in London is doing really well at the moment. But yeah, I want to open something like that. More about that later, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Other things I'm involved in, so kind of essentially helping a whole team of magicians here, wanting to give opportunities to people perform, but give opportunities for people to learn to become really good performers. I guess sort of a tagline for what it is that I want to be doing is championing and celebrating the art and performance of magic. So being a person who says, look, magic is a really great thing, it's a really great form of entertainment, come and see live magic, and promoting that.
Yeah.
And also somebody who's saying, hey, let me help you develop as a performer, let me help you to grow as a performer. So there's the cabaret. I perform independently, sort of doing close-up work around the country. I do a lot of in-home private entertainment, so private parlour shows, private close-up shows in people's houses or holiday properties. This here is part of
I'm glad we got
a project that I built during the pandemic called the Conjurers Collection. And this is an in-your-home immersive puzzle experience that is seeped within the history and paraphernalia of the golden age of magic. And this is one of 2 games such like it. There's another one that's new and coming for this year, which is, did you not know this?
I did not.
Secrets. There is another project which was created by the incredible John Morton called the Enigma Experience.
Oh, okay, no, I thought you meant something else.
No, so the Enigma Experience, which is another box puzzle game that John has created and has very kindly given me stewardship of for the time being. So we are hoping to launch that this year, and that's all themed around sort of archaeology and exploration. It's a bit Indiana Jones sort of style. Yeah. But it's kind of like an escape room, but it comes to you. It's an experience for people, as I say, in their homes, and it's it's
very fun.
Bit of a pet project. I've run teams of magicians for things like residencies, close-up residencies. We produce big shows for private events. Basically, I have fingers in lots of pies.
There's so many pies.
Stagecraft, that's another thing. So we're running Stagecraft lecture and workshop series, bringing in magicians and performers to help educate magicians to be better at stagecraft. As I said, I grew up with that kind of assistant to a magician kind of background, learning stupid things like how do you walk onto a stage. Sorry, not a stupid thing. It's not the right thing. Learning really important things that we perhaps don't think about. Before, especially if you've come into magic from a close-up background and you're now transitioning to stage, you might not think about how you speak on stage, how you hold yourself on stage, how you block out, how you organise props on stage, all of those kind of things that we're trying to help people learn, and things that can apply both to close-up, to stage, to parlour, to mentalism, whatever world of magic you exist in. We want to give people the tools so that they can create better magic.
Yeah, and they're really good. Right, so you've got, let me try to get this in my head organised. So you've got Curious Cabaret, you've got Stagecraft lectures, you've got your own private shows in people's houses, you've got
Conjurers
Collection, you've got
Magical Bottomless Brunch,
which is like whole team of magicians doing a bunch of stuff. You've got producing shows.
Mm-hmm.
Is directing different?
Yeah, I can stick it in. Producing and directing, you can stick them in the same.
Okay.
We haven't mentioned Slight, which is a new show.
Yes,
the name may change, but essentially it's a theatrical close-up show with an ensemble cast of magicians, similar to the Cabaret, wanting to give people a chance to perform, but wanting to develop collaborative ways of working so that performers can... So we can create more of a whole show rather than individual acts.
Yeah. It's basically just an excuse for all of us to get together and have fun stuff on stage. Yeah. So that's 7, and then there's also
there is an 8th. Yeah,
there's an 8th.
It's an octopus, basically.
Yeah, there's the octopus of Chris Wilder.
Yeah.
So hence what I'm saying about such a prolific businessman. I mean, we can really even keep track of all of the businesses.
Yeah, they are kind of. Any sane person would do one of these things. That each one is kind of a business in its own right, and that would probably be my advice to anybody watching this, thinking, what should I do in business? I would probably say do one thing really, really well. So if you want to be a strolling close-up magician, be an amazing strolling close-up magician, and do that really, really well, and do it in a way that is uniquely you. So don't try and copy other people. Or if you want to produce shows and do that really, really well. I guess the reason I've ended up doing what I do is, and this took me a long time to figure out, is I tend to get excited by lots of things. I like knowing lots of things about lots of different things. I enjoy kind of being a jack of all trades and kind of knowing a bit about everything. I enjoy creating new projects. I'm not a starter finisher. I'm kind of more of the kind of person who brings people together and creates new things. And for a long time, I think kind of there's that slur, isn't it? It's jack of all trades, master of none. And I always felt really bad about that. I was like, I saw lots of people in our industry, people who are really good friends, who are doing amazing shows, and they're either amazing stage performers or close-up performers. They're winning competitions, and I'd always thought, I wish that I could be like that, and found that quite difficult, until I realised that if you know a lot about a lot of things, even if you're not a master of one of those things, what you are a master of is you're a master of being good at a lot of things. Okay, I'm going somewhere with this. Yeah, which is actually really helpful if you are the producer of a show or the director of a show, because it allows you to plug a lot of gaps. Yeah. It also essentially you become the glue that starts to hold some of those things together. So so I'm very detail orientated. So I'm thinking about production value. I'm thinking about aesthetics. I'm thinking about running orders and script and music, and I'm thinking about the customer experience and how we welcome people and they feel hospitable. And I'm thinking about what am I performing if I'm hosting, and I'm thinking about what's everybody else posting, and I'm juggling all these different things. And you can only do that if you know about all these different things.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
If you're focused on one thing, if the thing that you're good at is hospitality, and you don't know anything about lighting and sound and staging, then you need somebody else to do that. Yeah. And you may still get somebody to do that, but if you know a little bit about all of these things, you also are able to communicate between these different people. Yep. So you can bridge that gap, and you can, you've got the diva performer who wants this lighting cue and this sound cue and this smoke cue, and they want all this kind of stuff, and you're able to translate that to a tech team or to somebody else. You can knit that together. So that's where it comes into its own.
And then there's kind of the octopus, isn't it? You've got 8 arms, so you can communicate people with.
Seriously, do not recommend it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's a question. Out of all of your octopus arms, which one is your favourite?
It's like asking me to decide between my children. That's really difficult. I think I definitely go through seasons where I get very obsessed with things, and it becomes a focus, like laser focus for a time. and then I'll move on to other things. And it's similar with hobbies. I think I have hobbies where I obsess over a thing and I'll spend a lot of time in it, and then maybe move on to something else. I think that's okay. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Although I think as kind of the octopus evolves, I think I am becoming more clear in the things that I'm good at and the things that I really enjoy. And so the cabaret is, as I say, is a labour of love. But as I said at the beginning, like that being in theatre and being in production and working with other people and behind the scenes is something that's always is kind of a core part of me that always kind of fills me with a lot of joy. So the cabaret, I think, is just one of the things I get the most amount of fun out of. Getting to work with loads of different people, loads of performers. It's I mean, we have a great job. Our job is really, really fun. I love what we do, and it's just really lovely to be able to stand on a stage and genuinely, with genuine warmth, be able to say to our audience, I really want to introduce you to somebody, a performer who's I love this performer.
Yeah.
You've got to see what they. I love that kind of aspect of the cabaret. I love getting to see different people perform, whether that's people who are really experienced professionals to others who are just starting out, and being able to be involved in their journey and help them a little bit with kind of directing side of things, if that's appropriate.
Well, I mean, it's off camera, but I can see the lineup that's coming up, and the performers that you managed to get in is unreal.
Yeah,
like there's some crazy names on there.
Yeah, and I think this has come about through a lot of goodwill, a lot of people who be very generous. I think it's important for me to have integrity and to be upfront and honest about stuff. And so essentially what I've said to people is, if people are interested in performing at the show, or people have been recommended to me, I will say, look, this is the vision of what we're trying to build. We want to champion and celebrate magic. We want to help people create unique, really great magic. We want to give the public the chance to see really good magic, because there isn't that opportunity. It's not at its current stage at the moment as the show. There's not huge amounts of money in it.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's not something that I'm drawing a salary from necessarily. I kind of invest everything, every profit from the show gets reinvested back into the show pretty much.
Yep.
And so I kind of say to people, I totally understand with your experience, your expertise, if this is not the right thing for you, that's totally fine. Like, I don't want to be unfair to people and their experience and their efforts. I want people to kind of join us because they're excited about what it is that we're trying to do. And amazingly, loads of people have said, oh yeah, that sounds really exciting, and have come and joined, and then they've recommended it to other people who've come. It's about this idea of momentum, like, somebody's come and performed and they've said to somebody else, oh, you should go and perform the cabaret. And so we've got, and you've kind of,
and now you've almost got too many people away.
Well, I absolutely do. I've got more people interested now, and more people I'd love to get back than we have available dates. But I mean, more about that later. But hopefully that's going to change, and hopefully the number of dates that we have is going to significantly increase in the not too distant future. But yeah, the people who've come I've worked with so many great people who are lovely, lovely people who do amazing magic and just lovely humans. And one of the things I love about the cabaret is just getting to spend time with, and I learn so much from chatting with these people about different areas of business and performance. If we go for food before or after the show, or we meet for breakfast, things like that, it's just a really great opportunity to spend time with some of these people. And there's lots of my favourite people in the world on that board who...
which one's the best?
Not Caleb Simpson.
Oh.
There's just too many. I mean, pretty much. Because I'm the producer of the show, basically, I get to choose who performs.
Yeah.
I basically only choose the people I really like.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's not true. I like lots of people, but I do. There are certain things that I'm looking for. So if you're interested in coming perform for the cabaret, there are particular things that I'm looking for, and it might not be the right thing for everybody. But I'm looking for people who are aspiring to create unique characters, unique acts, and not looking for generic magic acts.
Yep.
Who are, people who are using kind of stock lines and commercial tricks. I mean, there are people who perform stuff you can buy commercially, but I want people who are making it their own, kind of developing a character, because we want to give people things that are unique, not just a carbon copy of something else.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want just omni-deck.
Yeah, and I'm not the finished article yet either. I know that we're all learning, we're all growing, and I'm not expecting people to be the finished article, but I want people who are on that journey and who that is their aspiration, to create unique material, unique characters, unique worlds that they're building.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting. I mean, in the previous video we were talking about like value from the customer's point of view, but I guess in this case you also got value from, like, it's a very different kind of value that you're offering to the performers who are coming, because you're not. I mean, that's why I think so many people are saying yes, is because you're not undervaluing them. You're not saying, well, sorry, I've only got to pay you X, and like kind of the subtext of that might be, this is what you're worth. You're saying, look, I know you're worth more than this. I've seen your work you're doing. But the subtext of the value proposition is that this is a super fun show, and like I feel like there's also you can add to that. We wrote a whiteboard on a whiteboard from the last video, and we have all of the costs here. But I guess one of these could also be like fun or enjoyment. It's like maybe from a business point of view is less important, but it's also like from a lifestyle point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to have gigs that you enjoy.
This is very much the case with magicians in business who are saying, I genuinely love what I do, and it is a lifestyle business. If you get gigs all over the world, you get to enjoy traveling and seeing different parts of the world. Yeah, like who wouldn't love that? And I think I feel a little bit when I hear magicians saying, I do close-up or corporate or trade or whatever it is, children's magic, and I really don't like it. It's like, why are you doing a job that you don't like? Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole upside of being a magician, is that it's such a cool job.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you don't love what you do, don't do it. Yeah. But no, I absolutely love what I do. And in terms of the value proposition, maybe I am underselling things slightly in that...
Oh, it's definitely not like
for performers come in, whilst the kind of fee that we pay performers is, not what you'd necessarily get paid for your trade show gig or your private gig for the royal family.
Is that from experience? You're saying something there, Chris?
I can't deny or confirm that. We get paid really well. If we're doing, if we're good at the business side of things, we get paid really well. And so, we can take on gigs that are the fun ones and that we're going to get more fun out of. But in terms of the value to performers, whilst it is maybe a small fee, it's really important to me that we look after our performers as well. Yeah. So we will pay for accommodation. We will provide food for people. We want to make sure that they don't have to think about those things when they're perhaps arriving in a city they're not familiar with. Yeah. We also, if there are particular acts that I want to work with, we'll kind of pay for plane flights maybe if I want to get them in particularly. We want to look after people and make people feel welcome and cared for. That's really important to me. Yeah. And not something that I would want to change. There's opportunity for videos and photos that we have taken for shows. So there's lots of all the other aspects of value that make it a really fun show, and certainly if you're starting out, really a really good thing to get involved with. Also, it's a Tuesday. This show is a Tuesday night, so if you're getting booked on Tuesday night and getting paid $3,000, well done.
Tuesday night is not the most busy night for magicians, is it? Yeah.
So, although hopefully, like I say, this is going to grow to become Friday nights, Saturday nights, Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights, multiple shows on Saturdays, hopefully. At which point the show will be much bigger and pay a much higher fee as well. Yeah.
We'll continue to get bigger.
Yeah.
By the time I come back, it's going to be like, it's going to
be. So Caleb, who? Sorry, who are you?
No, it's going to be like McDonald's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just without the
without the cheapness and the downsides.
The cheapness and the dodgy business
Yes.
dealings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in. I don't think we've really talked about this much. Like, you worked as a teacher for what, 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was your process of going from, like, your thought process, and also just practically going from, like, such an ordinary job to such an extraordinary job? And also with family in there, like, how did you juggle that as well? Because I remember recently I was talking to, like, a few of the Nottingham guys, like Matt Knight and Andy and a few other people, and we were just like, how the heck does Chris juggle 8 blooming businesses and a family on the side? Like, it's if you don't have the family, then it's like, okay, you can, maybe it's fine if it's risky, but if you've got like a wife and kids, then it's like, now there's suddenly, like, there's so much more pressure on that. So I'm really curious how you kind of went about that, and how you
so again, as I'd said earlier, I'd reiterate, don't try what I've done. It's not easy, and I guess in many respects I'm largely existing on fumes and caffeine at the moment, but hopefully we'll get better than that. So I guess so. I had a 10-year career as a teacher, and I think in some sense we say it's an ordinary job, but it is an extraordinary job. I think hats off for the people who are teachers. It's a really hard job, and if you were to, I've said this dozens of times before, if you were to cut me open, I would bleed teacher. Like, I am still at my core someone who holds teaching as a very high part of my kind of core being, essentially, and I'm a kind of a lifelong learner myself. Essentially, I love to learn. I think that is something that has always been the case, even from a very young age. I enjoyed school because I just loved learning stuff, and we've already talked about the idea of just trying lots of different things. Both of my parents were teachers. My grandfather was a teacher, my aunts were teachers, so kind of you could say it runs in the family. And I did 10 years as a teacher, but in that time I have 3 children, so they were born throughout my time as a teacher. And teachers work incredibly long hours. I think I was working like 70 hours a week.
Whoa, 70?
Yeah.
Crikey.
Because you've got 20 to 22 contact hours in a normal working week, so that's 22 hours in front of a class.
Yeah.
That doesn't include any of your time preparing those lessons. That doesn't include time outside of those lessons for kind of continued professional development, and that doesn't include marking. And marking is a huge amount of time. It takes me a huge amount of time as a teacher. And so in like exam season, when you're marking exam papers, when you're marking homework, things like that, I was working really crazy hours, which you wouldn't think as a teacher. You say, oh yeah, you get all these long holidays, but I was, you have to work in holidays sometimes. Like, you do get a lot of time off, and it is that is great.
But if you're working like 1.5 times a full-time job in the week, it makes sense that you'd get more holidays, because like all those hours are just distributed differently.
And if I don't think any teacher goes into a teaching career thinking, oh, I'm going to do this half-heartedly. I think they want to do their best for the kids that they're in their care. They want to create good lessons, and they're passionate about their subjects. I guess perhaps people go into it for the sweet money, but I think there's a lot of time invested in it, and I just thought, I've got 3 young kids. I don't really see my kids as much as I'd like to, and I always felt like a bit of a round hole in the square, round peg in a square hole. It didn't quite fit with me. I like to think that I'm a really creative person, but just due to the demands of teaching and how much is on you, I couldn't kind of realise a lot of that creativity in what I was doing. I just found it too difficult, and I think that's increasingly so for people coming into the profession now. with shifts in government policy, shifts in the way, budget cuts and the way schools are doing things, it's becoming harder and harder and harder to do some of the things. And my hat is off to anybody who does that and does it really, really well. But I think I couldn't quite make it work. And then when I left teaching, I kind of felt, I think for the first time I kind of felt like things fitted together. So like I say, I love what I do now. I love the business side of stuff. I've got a maths and science background, so that lends itself well to the business side of things. And I get to work with loads of people and that I love working with. So it just kind of feels like coming to work every day. feels like it feels like a really nice thing. So that's kind of why I kind of left teaching and went into business myself. There's a certain it's hard. It's really hard being in business. Don't get me wrong. Like, you've really got to graft. And you've got to work hard. But also there is something about it that is really quite freeing, I think, and quite satisfying if you can make it work.
And so then how, like, I mean, you don't have to get into numbers or anything, but like practically, how did you do that? Like, I remember I read Andy Gladwin put together a small book called Going Pro, which is really helpful. It talks about his journey. And man, he set it up so that basically there was absolutely zero risk. He had like the whole year worth of gigs ready. He had like, all the savings necessary to like outlast that even further. And like, my approach was very unsuccessful and very different, which was just like fly to a different country and do it. And to be fair, my focus has not really been there the whole time. But how did you like go about that practically? How did you think about like, okay, I want to do magic full time, and still like put food on the table?
Yeah. So I think I'm in the very fortunate position that I'm married, and my wife was, she was on maternity leave actually when I went full time into business. For a lot of reasons, actually, I'm very fortunate. So when I left teaching, I volunteered for redundancy. So I was made voluntary redundant. What's the expression? I took voluntary redundancy. That's the expression. So if you take voluntary redundancy for a job, there's a redundancy a severance package which you get paid, and if you take voluntary redundancy, typically it's a better package than if you are made to take redundancy. So I had some capital going into the business, some savings to start with. Also, as I say, my wife works and she now works full time, and so we have two incomes into our family, and that makes a massive difference. I think it's, if you are a single person and you are paying rent and bills, and in the kind of current economy that we're in, I think that's really difficult. It's doable, but I think it requires it's a lot harder. It requires a lot. It's a lot more pressure and requires a lot more to kind of balance the numbers. So I was in a very fortunate position and supported by my wife, who's wonderful, and was in the position where, because we had another salary coming into the household, I didn't have to bring in huge amounts of money to start with in order for us to meet our bottom line. We also have a very supportive family, so we have family nearby who've been able to look after our children. We have a very supportive church family who I also very much do not underappreciate how much they support one another, how much we support one another and are there to look after and help with things, which I know that not everybody has that kind of community background where they are, or friendship network. So yeah, I think so. There's a lot of people around us supporting us, and I think if you're going into it, I think Andy's approach is really sensible. I think trying to de-risk any kind of transition for business is so important, and that's very much what I do when I'm creating new projects. There's an element though to which actually we're not in control. And in fact I would probably say we're not, and so sometimes you just have to jump 2 feet in the deep end But word of caution on that, I would say, have, as we talked about in the other video, capital reserves are really important. So when you're starting a business, learn about business.
Yeah.
Okay, so learn what that looks like. So have a vision for where the money's going to come from, the strategy. Have kind of capital in the business to start with, whether that comes from friends and family, whether that comes through individual savings, maybe that's a bank loan. Maybe if it's a really great idea you've got, then you might have investment backing, but probably unlikely in a startup for the kind of work that we're in.
Yeah.
But having that startup capital to get you into business, that will pay for things like your online presence, websites, hiring photographers, videographers, kind of getting the momentum going of the business so people see you, see who you are. You're probably going to have some time to start with where you're not earning lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of like pricing, kind of pricing yourself in such a way that you are, the value, the kind of price that you're charging is sufficient that you don't have to work an extraordinary amount in order to be able to meet your bottom line every month.
Yeah.
So it's kind of basic maths. If you are let's say you are a strolling close-up magician, so your typical lines of work are probably going to be weddings, corporate events, maybe private parties, birthdays, wedding anniversaries, things like that.
And maybe restaurants as well.
Maybe restaurants. What days of the week are those things available? Typically
Fridays
and
Sunday.
Saturdays, maybe Sunday.
Yeah, maybe Sunday.
There's only 12 days in a month, therefore, that you can get bookings. What percentage of those days are you going to work? Are you going to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week? Probably not. I don't work Sundays, so now immediately that's Fridays and Saturdays. Friday daytimes, people don't, Friday evenings, yes. Saturdays, daytime and evening. So immediately the opportunities for where those bookings are going to come from are very small.
And they all overlap as well.
And they all overlap. And so if I'm going out and I'm charging £250 for a strolling close-up gig, and I've got every Saturday of the month booked up, that's only £1,000 in a month. That is not enough to hit a bottom line typically. And then there's no profit in the business either. So how are you going to reinvest? You've got to be making in excess of your bottom line to grow the business. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just kind of
you're not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere in business. So when you're setting your price points, let's say you charge £500. Let's say so now those 4 Saturdays are worth £2,000. Well, let's say you charge £1,000 and your bottom line is £1,000. Now you only have to work 1 gig in a month, and I'm not saying you just kind of sit back and relax for the rest of the time, but the pressure, there's not so much pressure.
Yeah, you can afford to turn down gigs, and you can afford to
and you don't have to kind of desperately accept every single gig that comes your way, because if you can get a reliable cash flow where you're hitting your bottom line, then you can be much more selective about the gigs you take, and you take the ones that you want to do and the ones that align with your vision and business, and that serve your customers and your clients as well, and that are not the ones that are not going to work for everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm interested. We've talked about this a bit, but you have really interesting kind of thoughts on pricing. I'd love to dive into just like giving advice for pricing for magicians, because that's one thing that's really hard to find information on. But before then, could you kind of talk about your whole philosophy around like, accurately valuing magic, not having like a variable price which depends on the customer, and all of those philosophies that you have, and like if a gig is below the price, then being able to say no to it so that the value of magic is kept at a high point. I think that's really interesting. If you
So I mean, I think I have a problem with a mindset that says I'll charge whatever I can get for a gig. So you get an inquiry for a gig, they say I've got £300 budget, you want £500, and they've only got £300, but you've got no other work coming in. and so you say, yeah, okay, I'll take that gig for £300. Then a week before the date, somebody comes in and says, oh, I've got a gig for you, it's £600, that's my budget. And you say, great, that's my price, it's £600. But now you have to say to that original client, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do your gig, but I'm sending somebody else, and I'm going to pay them £200, so I'm going to make another £100 off that gig as well. I think I have a problem with that for many reasons. One is I think it's dishonouring the original client that you've booked. Two, I think that kind of attitude of kind of trying to then kind of scrape a profit off at the expense of another performer. I have a problem with that as well. And then thirdly, and I think this is probably what it stems from, is that you don't have a correct value of your worth and a clear vision on the people that you want to work with and a commitment to working with those people. So you're kind of you're desperate for that work. I'm going to charge £300 because you're not in a position where you can confidently say that my rate is £500 or whatever it is, because you're desperately having to take that work. You're not doing business very well if you're in that situation, because you haven't got that steady cash flow. For me, I think so. Yes, I do have different price points in terms of packaging. So if I charge £750 in close-up on a Saturday, and then another client comes along and they say, we want you to do your full parlour show, and we're going to pay double that on the same date, my commitment is to the original client. So I'm sorry, I'm booked on that day. And I think it comes from a position of confidence to be able to say, I already have a client on that day. And if you've correctly priced yourself, then it doesn't matter that I'm not losing £1,500. I didn't have that £1,500, but I've got enough money coming in. I don't need more money. Where I think things are slightly different as well is that I think there's a big network of team in Nottingham who work collaboratively with one another. We don't see each other as competition. Where we can then say, oh, you've got a parlour show, brilliant, I can highly recommend Matt, or I can highly recommend Mark, or I can highly recommend Max. And there's so many people that I can just steer them towards with confidence, knowing that these people are going to do these team are going to do a great job. The client's going to get a great service, and
that goes both ways as well, right? Everyone is connected in that way.
So, what's your original question about pricing? About how you determine what you charge? You charge.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a super difficult thing to get started with, because when I remember actually when I think that's the second time I came to Nottingham, we had a good conversation about this, because I was like, man, how do I value myself? Like, I'd be happy with this, and I remember you saying like, no, you need to charge more than that. And I was like, I almost don't feel comfortable charging that, but I know I can see the sense behind it. So can you kind of break down, like, let's say there's a magician out there, right, who's starting out, they're getting into magic, they're getting gigs, but they have no idea how to price themselves, and also how to scale that in the future. Could you kind of break it down for that kind of person?
So I agree, it's very hard pricing yourself. It's very hard. I mean, perhaps some people look at themselves and go, oh yeah, I'm worth $1 million. That's certainly not my personality type. And I imagine there are a lot of people in our industry who find that, similarly find themselves in that position. I think it's much easier if somebody else does that for you. So I can look at performers and I can kind of say, okay, I think this is the kind of price you should be charging, this is the value that you should be charging. And so it may be helpful to ask other people. You can research, so you can look at the market and see what people are charging, and you can price yourself similarly to that group of people, so you can do it that way. I think it's worth remembering that the value the number that gets paid is determined by the client. So there may be one client who has a budget of £300, and when they look at you and think, oh, the value to me is £300 and that's what I'll pay you. But there may be another client who looks at what you do and say, oh, actually, I can see how that would work really well for us. And to you, their value is £1,000. So that client's going to pay you £1,000, and that client's going to pay you £300. From your point of view, it seems like what you're doing is kind of the same thing, but that client sees more value. To give you an example, let's say a client, they've got a fairly small budget, they just want some magic to fill the time for an event that they're doing, a birthday party or something. They just want a magician to come along and do a few tricks.
Yeah.
It's not high on their priority list. For them, it's more important they've got good food, good drinks, nice snazzy venue, and a photographer, let's say.
Yeah.
So the value to them of a magician is actually fairly low down the pecking order. Whereas if you've got somebody who loves magic and they want a great magician, and very importantly, they like you. You don't want they don't want some generic magician just can do a couple of tricks. They specifically want you as a performer because they know you, they know your style, they've seen you perform before. Now to that person, they might say, we've got to have Caleb.
Yeah.
And so and maybe they're having a dinner party, maybe they want to introduce this person to their friends, and for them actually £600, £700, £800 is not a problem. Maybe they earn more money, and for them actually it's not a huge amount of money. So there is not one fixed. There isn't the value is determined by the client. Okay, so there is a question behind that, which is, who do you want to work with? Who do you want your clients to be?
Yeah.
And some people will make the decision that actually I want to do magic for people who perhaps don't have a huge income. Perhaps you want to do stuff for kids' parties where it's perceived maybe that there isn't as much money there. And if that's your vision and that's what you're committed to, great. I have no problem with that, and do that and be the best you can at that. If you can make that work financially, like I say, if you've worked out your costs, what is your bottom line? If you can make that work as a business and you're happy with the standard of living, great, do that. And absolutely, I wholly support that. If you want to work for higher end clients, if you want to work for the rich and famous or whoever it is you want to, then you're probably not going to be charging the same price.
Yeah.
And sometimes your price can disqualify you from those different brackets as well. So if I go to a kind of a high end client who's perceiving, if I go to a high end client that's paying thousands of pounds for the drinks at an event, and you come along and say, oh, I'm a magician, I'll do it for 200 quid, there's a possibility that they may, because you're only charging £200, they may think, oh, maybe they're not that good then.
Yeah.
They're only worth £200. So there is a bit of a game that's going on here. Similarly, if you're wanting to work with those clients, those high-end clients, then your other clients need to be of that status as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of about niching. I still don't think I've actually answered the question about how you decide what you like.
Let's say let's look at like a common case, like walk around, close-up magicians. There's a lot of people out there wanting to do that.
Mm-hmm.
As a general guide, what would you give them as a price? And I know it's hard, like it's different every person, and I get it, but like as a general rough.
So I think can I say this? I think I can say this. Probably in more recent years, since the pandemic, probably, when I've looked at pricing, I've done the research and I've looked at the market. There are like agencies, and there are, bark.com.
What is bark.com?
Oh, don't go for it's the dark side. Bark.com is a platform which is essentially a race to the bottom. It's a website where you can hire all sorts of different. It's a bit like the Fiverr of the.
Oh really?
Of the entertainment industry, where you go on there and you say, I'm looking for a magician, and people bid, and then essentially it's like, I'll take the lowest price, is essentially what it comes down to. It's a bit of a race to the bottom.
What?
So I have the opposite mentality. So I when I started, I looked at the market and looked at what the average was, and kind of went, okay, so let's say magician on average, what is it, about £300, £350 maybe in our region, for magicians. Now, from a strategy, from a competition point of view, if you charge £150, if you think I'm going to undercut these performers, the people that will come and buy your services are the people who want a bargain, essentially. That you're going to try and undercut them. But you also may get that situation we talked about a minute ago where people think, well, maybe they're just not that good. Okay, and they, in their mind, they're thinking, okay, I want a magician that's about £300. But if you price yourself at £300 or 350, somewhere in that region, you've now got a huge amount of competition. If people are shopping on price, they're going, well, that person's £3, that's £350, they're £325, they're £340. Flip a coin. Maybe you really stand out from the crowd stylistically, and so people think, oh, I like this person, I want to go with them. If you do the opposite of the person who undercuts, if you go, okay, the average is 300, I'm going to bill at 600 or 700. So now you have all these people who are at £300, and you go, right, I'm 650. The amount of competition is much smaller, and now people look at it and they go, why is that person double the price?
Like, what else am I?
So they must be a lot better than those people. So that was kind of my approach coming into it, and then I guess you don't get as many bookings maybe, but over time, with repeat clients and kind of as word of mouth spreads, these people who are paying $650 now spread the word of mouth, and they don't say, oh, we pay. You don't get into the trap where you end up getting low price bookings. They're telling other people that they paid $650, and they're recommending you to people who will pay $650. So you end up with more of that work.
But also, you only need to get half the gigs than you would at the other thing anyway, because you're charging double the amount.
If you want a more strategic approach to it, there is it's called the I'm gonna have to look this up, Van Westendorf or something like that pricing model. It's got, I can't remember what it's called. And essentially, if you've got a group of people that you can ask, potential clients, you can ask them 4 questions. This is like a statistical approach to it. You can ask them, at what price would you, so let's say for this service, Close-Up Australian Magic, what price would you consider this to be a bit suspicious? Like, this seems a bit too cheap, a bit too
too good to be true.
I think I'm not going to get a very good service here. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you ask, what price does this become too expensive and out of your budget? Then you have, at what price do you think you'd be getting you'd be getting a bargain? And then the third one is, at what price do you think this would be this would be a stretch, but actually I think it would be worth it, kind of. So you've got 4 points. So no, this is too cheap, it seems going to be rubbish. At the other end, you've got out of my budget, then you've got getting a bargain, and you've got right on the kind of tipping point of what I can afford. Okay. And if you get that information from enough people, you get a big enough pool of data, you can plot that on a graph, and you end up with 4 curves. So 4 curves on a graph like this, plotting that data, and where they meet in the middle, that is your optimum pricing zone.
That's a really, really good way of doing it.
So that if you want a scientific approach to how you figure out pricing, that's what you do. But you need a big pool of data.
And you need to be asking the people that you want to be booked by. Like, it can't just be anyone.
I mean, you can. I think that if you ask the kind of people that you want to work with, that'll give you a more accurate model. If you ask anybody, then it's going to be the data's going to be all over the place, and you have to ask a lot of people to eliminate outlying data. So that's I mean, you can, other ways of doing it, you can try a sort of a brute force approach, which is you pick a number you say £400, and you see, and people book you, great. Then the next time somebody asks to book you, you say £500. And if they say, yeah, great, brilliant. Next person, you say £600, great. Next person, you say £700, they go, that's too expensive. You've now found your price. Your price is 600.
It's like the supply and demand
keep
curves.
going up. Keep going up until that's another way that people might tell you how to go pricing like that. I think if you've got to be careful with that you don't, if you haven't got enough work, if you haven't got that cash flow coming in, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
With kind of work coming in. Faye Presta had a really good piece of advice, which was fill your calendar, and once your calendar is full, double your prices. So if you're charging £500, let's say, and your calendar, all your Saturdays are booked up, £500 a gig. Next year, when you're going to fill your calendar, now your price is £1,000. You'll get half the number of bookings, or if you get half the number of bookings, you're still earning the same amount of money. And if now you fill your calendar, you earn twice as much money.
And there's kind of a good question, like, how do you scale it? How do you personally look at scaling how much you're paying? Because I mean, inflation's going up. There's all these other things that your value as a performer is going up the more you do it.
Yeah.
Also, the less time you have, the more value that more of that time is valued at. So, like, how do you look at scaling that for like private gigs and stuff?
Yeah, so I think all of those points are completely valid, aren't they? So the more time you have in the industry, the more experienced you become, the more knowledge you have, the better you are, and so you can justify increasing your prices. You probably can't justify double them.
Yeah.
But you can certainly justify a higher price point. There's different routes that you can take at that point, I think, and this comes down to your direction, where you want to go in business. Do you want to be a close-up performing magician forever until you retire? Do you want to take your business in a different direction? Do you want to go like an agency or a management route? And different people have different answers to that question. But yeah, I think you would expect to see people's prices going up year after year.
Yep.
If they weren't,
they're almost going down if they aren't, right? Especially with inflation. Like, even if you're not improving as a performer, you still want to be. I mean, I guess I don't know.
So I guess why do people's prices go down? I think people's prices are going down because they're not getting enough work, and so they're trying to kind of incentivize people to buy their product.
Trying to increase demand
because they're not getting enough sales.
Yeah.
I think so. Simon Sinek has got a book. So we were talking earlier about reading lots of business books, and Simon Sinek has written a book called Start With Why, and it's a book that explores the idea of businesses that start with a question of why do we do business, and what follows from that is, okay, here's our vision, this is why we do what we do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what we're going to do. So this is the product at the bottom. Businesses that start with what, this is our product, and then they try and find out, this is how we're going to do it, and they get it the other way around, are playing a different game. So if you get customers on board with the why, they are buying into the I'm on board with this vision of what of why you do what you do. They will almost buy whatever you like from them. Apple is a really good example, and he uses the example of Apple quite a lot in the book. Apple very much have a vision in business of why they do what they do. They want to challenge the status quo in technology, essentially. How do they do that? They make computers, they make products that have great graphical interfaces, that are kind of stylish, and they're kind of changing what it is to have a PC is kind of very functional, whereas Apple has an aesthetic that is very Apple. Yeah. And then the what, it's like, well, we have Macs and we have iPhones, and these are our products. But if you bought into the I want to be the kind of person, I sit with this brand, then you'll buy whatever they're selling. Yeah. It's like a cult. That's what we're trying to be, building a cult. Whereas if you're selling a what, if you're just selling something based on the what, this is my product, then you end up relying on manipulating people. So discounted prices, buy one get one free, limited time offer, peer pressure, celebrity endorsements, all of these different strategies to manipulate people into buying the product. But what he argues is that actually only lasts for a short period of time. So as soon as those, I'll buy this now because it's half. Think about when you go to the supermarket. This is a classic. Like I'll see something that's half price. The branded breakfast cereal, whatever it is half price. Like, I'll get that because it's half price. You buy it. The next week you come back, it's not on half price anymore. It's full price.
It's like, well,
so no, I'm not going to buy it now.
Yeah, because you're just buying it
the
based
loyalty
off
is not there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're
like, that's my favourite kind of chocolate milk, then doesn't matter what the price is.
Doesn't matter what the price is.
Yeah.
And so it's the same in our industry. If you're having to manipulate on price, then it's perhaps because the consumer doesn't necessarily want you as the product. They just want a magician, and so they're shopping on price. They just want the cheapest they can get. This is why I always encourage performers to think about creating unique characters and a unique performance style or a unique act, because if you're the only one who does it and that's what the client wants, then you're the one that they're going to book.
Yeah.
If you are a generic magician that does insert name of generic tricks here. I won't divide the community. I have very strong opinions on this, as you know. If you're going to do dippy duck, dippy duck and walk around.
To be honest, dippy duck and walk around would be amazing.
I think dippy duck would kill him walk around. Actually, I think I would pay to see that. No, if you're gonna do stuff that anybody can do, and you're a bit vanilla as a magician, then why would I pay £400 when I could pay £200 or 150 or 75?
Yeah,
there has to be that connection with if you are the business. If you're a solo performer, then you are the product.
Yeah,
there has to be a connection between you and the buyer. Otherwise, they'll just
exactly. Otherwise, you're never going to get that kind of customer base that specifically wants you.
Yeah. We are going deep. We are going seriously.
Yeah, man. This is what I love about this kind of stuff. It's just like, going into this stuff. Should we take a bit?
Yeah, sure.
I'm keen to. I mean, one of the things that first, I was surprised by how long it took me to realize this. That kind of has helped me to really get on board with your vision for the business, is that you're also have a strong faith, and also you have that faith has influenced your values as a businessman. I mean, some of the things you've been saying about pricing and stuff is very against the status quo. There aren't many magicians out there who would turn down a gig that's double the price to honor the original client. Business is typically quite money hungry, and I think that's really awesome. And so I'm keen to kind of hear how your values, or kind of what your values are. And I think they've probably come across already, but what your values are, and how that influences magic and business.
So as I've kind of already alluded to in little bits of the conversation previously, so I'm Christian, as you know, and when you say that, there's probably a lot of preconceptions of what that might mean. So, and I guess it depends on who's watching. What I mean by that is I am not just somebody who goes to church on a Sunday, or kind of perhaps has some kind of moral framework that I abide by, that I pay my taxes on time, whatever that is. But as a Christian, is someone who is sort of an active Bible-believing Christian who lives out life in a way that is one of someone who follows Jesus as a disciple. So I guess I'm not a Sunday Christian, is what I'm saying. It's not a religious label. It's a worldview based on my belief in who Jesus was and is, that pervades my whole life. So it's something that impacts every single area, from families, friendships, business, how I conduct myself, and that I am kind of transformed into the kind of person that Jesus was. So hopefully, if I get things right, that means I'm alright. I'm alright to hang around with, and that I'm a nice person. But it's we don't always get things right. We make mistakes. But hopefully, the way that I live is categorised by the kind of fruit that we would expect to see in Christian lives. So people who are kind and generous and joyful and loving and patient and self-controlled. These are kind of all the fruits that the Bible talks about that we should see in believers. And being a Christian is something that impacts the way that we think about ourselves, the way that we think about the world that we live in, the way that we treat and think about other people, the way that we handle money. It impacts everything. It's not like, oh, this is my little Christian life, and then this is my world life, and then this is my relationship stuff over here. It's kind of one whole thing. So when it comes to business, specifically when it comes to money, I suppose, I guess I hold the opinion or the belief that the money that I have, the money that I earn in business, the money that my wife brings together, that we share as a family, is something that we are looking after. It's not something I'm going to take with me when I die. It's something that I'm stewarding. And so we have an expression in our family that we hold on to things with open hands. So whether that's money, whether that's possessions, we hold things with open hands rather than kind of grasping hold of them that this is mine, this is mine to keep. And so money is a tool to be used, and to be used kindly and generously. The things that I own personally and in business are things that are to be used with open hands, generously and kindly. So, and hopefully I'm able to do that in supporting others. So, hopefully I'm able to share the resources that I have, share the network of contacts that I have, to support other people. I guess with money in business, I'm not set on being a millionaire and earning as much as I can and just more and more and more, and not being satisfied with what I have. I love what I do, and I'm very content with what I have. More money that comes into the business is opportunity to grow what we're doing for more people so for performers, I guess, for the performers I work with, it's how I'm able to use the money and resources at my disposal to help them to grow, to be better performers, and to bring more magic into the world. It sounds cliched and cheesy, but I do believe in that. I think as magicians, we're able to bring a sense of joy and a sense of relief, and just allow people to just relax in the kind of world we live in that's often full of kind of stuff that's quite grim sometimes. And for for people who experience the magic that we perform, the shows that we perform, hopefully those experiences are there lightening their load, and that they're able to enjoy and kind of relax and create memories and experiences that will stay with them for many years. And that's what's really fun about our job. But it all stems from this idea of giving back to people, to doing so generously, and that stems from a faith in Christ. Yeah,
and it's really cool because there aren't many people out there in the magic world who are like vocal about that, or who have that as such a defining element in their whole life and in their business. It's been extremely refreshing in the last kind of, I don't even know, like 4 months that I've been living here, to just kind of work alongside someone who has that same drive to not just do it for the money, but to do it because you want to serve people and also just I would just really appreciate that. I feel like I had some other questions on that. But yeah. Oh yeah. How did you become a Christian? What is your testimony behind that?
So I grew up. My mum took us to church when we were young, and I went to church until I was about 11 or 12 or so, and I became a little bit disillusioned with it. I think the church that we went to was very traditional. Probably when you think of, for the most part, if you think of what church is like in the UK, you're probably picturing the kind of church that this was. It was kind of old building, elderly congregation, and unfortunately, I would say the majority of the people who were part of that church growing up didn't necessarily know Jesus. And I think you could probably tell that by I think there's probably a lot of Sunday Christianity going on in that church. And so I left at 12. It was not something that particularly interested me, although I still was going to a youth group. So I was going to a youth group with a different church. It was a Baptist church. It was kind of a little small church, small congregation, but it felt very different. You kind of went there and it felt like the people loved one another, and they kind of were invested in you, and were always, even though I wasn't going to that church on a Sunday, anytime that you'd kind of run into members of that congregation, they would always be really delighted to know how you were and what you were up to. And when I became when I was about 14 or 14 maybe, a new minister and his family moved to the church, and they had 3 boys, and I became really good friends with the youngest son, Andy, and we did loads of stuff together. I kept going to this youth group, and eventually through continually going and listening and hearing the Bible taught in its entirety, and reading and listening to the Bible as well, I got to the point where I realised, well, I actually do believe these things that I'm learning about. I do actually believe that there is truth in what these things are saying. I believed who the Bible said Jesus was, and who he claimed to be, and I believed that there was evidence that Jesus died and rose again. And I realised that I think I was about 15 or 16 at the time. I realised I'd not done anything about it. And I realised this. We'd just come back from a concert with a Christian band, and they talked about how they became Christians, and they'd given like a little tract. They'd given a tract away on like a little USB stick, which is like what they used to do before stuff was downloadable. USB plugs into. No, I'm joking. Anyway, and I read some of the stuff on there. Realised I'd not done anything about it, and so that I sort of prayed, and became a Christian. And kind of that's kind of the moment I would say I probably became a Christian. And then went from there really. Kind of I then started going to the church, and then moved away for university. Moved to Nottingham, which is where we've lived ever since, and I kind of plugged in here to a church that we've been members of now for years, some time, and and very much a church that wants to teach the Bible and wants to love one another and serve the community that we live in. So that's how I became a Christian.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great church. Awesome. I did not know that. How old were you when you first when you were at that? I came home from that concert.
I was about 15, maybe 16, 15, something like that.
Cool.
And then I came to university. I got very involved in like a Christian union at Nottingham, and kind of chatting to people about the gospel, and so I didn't actually do a lot of magic actually when I first came to university. Certainly my first year I didn't want to be the guy who does magic, but I did kind of chat to lots of people about Jesus, about the Bible, and got very much involved with that. And then I think I got baptised when I was 21, so I was I kind of hadn't been baptised. I'd been sort of growing up in the kind of church I'd been to before. I'd been confirmed, which is like where you kind of go, yep, I agree with the kind of promises that your parents made when you were like baptized as an infant, so we've done that. But then I got baptized like full face immersion in the water when I was 21. Incidentally, if you ever get baptized, make sure you take a breath before you get dunked into the water. They go backwards as well, yeah. So in the church at the moment, you kind of go forwards. In this particular church, it was outdoor pool.
Yeah.
And it's like backwards.
Yeah.
And I forgot to like breathe in before going into the pool. I was just kind of wrapped up in the moment. And so then when I came out of the water, I was just like, like coughing and spluttering. Like these people trying to drown me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
They really should have a practical
sign.
section.
Don't forget to breathe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy quote or something. Don't panic. Don't forget to point. That's what I'm thinking of. The flicking fingers thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. Well, I have to say, I'm sure you've seen the video. Recently, I posted a video talking about how I'm moving back to New Zealand. Talked a bit about my reasons why, which were founded in my faith. Yeah.
You're going to replace my face with like a crying emoji.
Crying emoji, yeah. It is sad. It is really sad. But as a result, have got some DMs recently from people, and particularly a few Christians, like basically asking the same questions I've been asking for the last few years. Like, how do you use your faith? Well, like, how do you not use your faith? How do you share your faith with magic? Like, how do those worlds collide in a way that doesn't take away from either of them? I don't think I've really got an answer for it, but I'm curious I think we've talked about this a bit, but what do you think about that?
So I think, regardless of whatever the job is that you do, whether it's magic or healthcare or education, I think live your life with integrity and live your life in a way that is, don't be ashamed, don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian. I've had the weirdest conversations with some of the group that you'll know about all sorts of things, ranging from Satanism to Scientology, cults, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, great. I have no problems with being very open about what I believe and just not being weird about it. I think that's part of the issue. Sometimes Christians can be a bit weird in the way that it's no wonder people think it's a bit culty. Just being very open to have normal conversation, not hiding the fact, being very open to talk about things in everyday conversation, much as the way I would with other Christians, and bringing things into relevant conversation where it's appropriate. I don't want to kind of push people down people's throat, but I will challenge people's thinking if I think that's important, and the kind of values that I want to get people to think about that I work with in terms of business are obviously very much kind of those of Christian nature. In terms of sharing your faith, like with magic, I don't do any of that, like, and the King of Hearts represents Jesus. I don't do any of that. And I mean, there may be contexts where that is helpful. What I do, and I've done past, like I do continue to do, is I wrote a show for churches and for mission organisations that want a way of being able to invite people into the building to kind of meet and spend time with other Christians. That kind of gives an introduction into that world, essentially. So I wrote a show called Unbelievable, and the idea was just to do what I wanted to create a show that could stand alongside our peers. So I wanted to be able to do a show that's well produced and got really great magic in it.
Yep.
That's not cheesy, but that would sit well alongside a professional show, but at the same time kind of start to ask questions and help people to think about some of the implications of the world that we live in and kind of what the Bible what Jesus has to say about different things. And so the kind of format for that was kind of a first half of a show, and then we had before the interval we did like a Q&A where we answered some sort of like apologetic type questions. So that means questions about topical issues, talked about my background in science and education, and how do those things align as a Christian. We talked about current topics of evidence and how do you believe the Bible, all those kind of things, just to kind of help people unpick maybe some of the objections or some of the kind of stumbling blocks to believing the Bible. And then carried on with the show, and there were kind of elements in the show which alluded to kind of these ideas, but I never directly sort of used like metaphors, or I didn't use it in a sort of an educational sense as an illustration to explain the Bible. I'm not saying you can't do that. That may well work quite well for younger audiences, perhaps.
I think it can work really well for kids.
Or audiences that English is not first language, or if you're communicating in a language it's still not your first language. I kind of consciously chose not to do it in that way, because I didn't want there to be any confusion between what I think things that are objectively I believe to be true and evidence-based, i.e. what the Bible says and what we believe as Christians, and things that are inherently a bit tricksy and deceptive, and there's a blurred line there between what's actually going on. I don't want to deceive anybody into becoming a Christian. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to be very open and upfront and have honest conversations with people and let them make their mind up themselves. And so I don't really want to blur those lines. So that's why when I've written shows before, there's been that clear distinction between the magic part of the show and okay, well, now we're going to have a slightly more serious conversation.
I think it's a great way to do it. I think I've found the exact same thing, where it's like very hard to find a way to have the magic not take away from the gospel message, or vice versa. Like that's quite helpful to have them a little bit compartmentalized in the setting of a show, I guess. Cool. Well, let's talk more about shows then. Sorry.
Before you ask the question, can I ask a quick question? Mike, we're not mics on today, is that all okay?
No, I'm just using my iPhone mic. I tested the sound, it sounds alright.
So you can edit this bit out.
Just
suddenly occurred to me.
We're going to keep it in because, we keep this nice, and I need the watch time basically, so the more I speak, the more I fill the silence.
5 hours, is that what we're aiming for? 5 hours?
Yeah. I think, 6 hours in? 1 hour, 2
hours? We're like 2 hours in maybe?
Yeah, something like that. That's going good. It has not felt like 2 hours. But I need to smoothly transition, So speaking of shows, Chris, you are very much in the world of producing and directing shows, and that is a very interesting world, especially as someone like myself who, I know the importance of a director, but definitely don't have the skill set to be my own director. What kind of surface level beginner advice would you give to someone like me in terms of just things that you are always looking out for when you're directing a show, like things to common mistakes maybe, or just like general things to be aware of that are not initially obvious when you're writing a show?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think when I'm observing other performers, there are certain things that are very obvious very quickly that are very easy to fix, and I think if you fix them quickly, you can sort of establish a performance that's a much higher caliber straight away. Some of the easy fixes are around scripting. Specifically, gonna keep that in.
Okay, so specifically around scripting. Sorry.
Speaking in tongues there for a second. So specifically around scripting and improvised scripting. So if people aren't certain in what they're saying, if they're making up as they're going along, it's a really common occurrence that they include filler words and just nonsense. And it's very telling when that happens. Ums, ers, buts, yeah, basically. All of those kind of things that creep in. And if you can eliminate those, and there's an easy way of doing it, if you can eliminate those very quickly, immediately, things feel a lot more impactful. So typically it's because you either don't know what you're going to say next, and so your brain is trying to fill in the silence whilst you're kind of rapidly trying to think of what to say next. It may be because you feel unconsciously uncomfortable on the stage and uncomfortable with the silence. It may be because you've not properly scripted and you need to properly script. But the kind of basic way, especially if you're in a improvised conversational setting like this, and you want to reduce the number of filler words, it can be just a case of pacing and breathing. So if you're not quite sure what to say next, just stop talking, breathe, and pause, and actually the silence won't affect anything.
If anything, it actually helps you out because it's really useful to have pauses.
And it gives the audience a chance to process what's going on, allows you to measure the rate of your speech and so forth. So that would be one of the really common things that comes up.
I actually remember, sorry to butt in here, I remember one thing that helped me a lot with this, just in thinking about it, is in Tom Stone's stagecraft lecture that he did in Nottingham, where he talked about the reason why we say ums and likes and ifs and buts is because we need to communicate to the other person that we're still talking and that we're not finished yet. But on stage, everyone assumes that immediately. You do not have to state that. No one's going to pipe in and speak over you if you have some silence. So that was helped me to really think about that. Same for video as well. I'm still trying to work on that. I don't have to say because there's no one that's going to interrupt me.
Yeah.
But sorry.
That's an absolutely valid point. And it's especially in a conversational setting where you're trying to, if you're in the middle of telling a story and you think somebody's going to interrupt you, and that is a common occurrence. So that's one thing. One of the things I think that's quite common in our industry is certainly with the people that I work with, where it's that small stage sort of parlour setting, you have a lot of people who are transitioning from close-up magician to parlour. In fact, I think a lot of people come into our industry and they start in that close-up world, whether that's showing tricks to a few friends or work colleagues or family members, and then maybe they transition into the professional walk-around kind of setting. But I don't think we have necessarily a clear route of people who come into the business and they go straight into stage, straight into parlour. Typically there's some kind of close-up in the background. There's some, not always the case, but there are a lot of people I think who have started in close-up. And as a result of that, you see habits and tendencies that are present in close-up magic that don't translate well into stage. Certainly to do with things like movement on stage. So excessive movement and kind of moving around rather than kind of standing still, the way that you project and the need to vocally project versus, so if you're in close-up, we can talk at a conversational level, whereas you're stood on a stage, you may be mic'd up, but you still need to speak like you're speaking to the room and not like you're speaking to a person next to you. You are holding a much bigger, you're taking up much more space on a stage. Whereas in close-up it could be much more small and intimate. So there's questions about body language and body posture and how you address the room. You have to bring in people. You're not just focusing here, but you're maybe bringing in the focus from all the different parts of the audience that's looking at you. So it's being conscious and thinking about the differences between close-up and stage. Other things that you see are if somebody's coming from a close-up setting, they might be used to displaying in a way, if it's cards is a good example, if you're displaying here, which is suitable for close-up, doesn't translate on stage, you have to move everything up to here. And you're creating a different frame. If you've got things on a table on stage, how does the audience see that? So you've got to shift your perspective from sort of horizontal to vertical almost on stage. And these are really easy fixes. These don't take a huge amount of time to fix. But if you're wanting to go from that close-up to stage setting, these are things to be mindful of. That we can touch on now. I think if you're writing a whole show, there are lots of other much bigger things that we can talk about.
What about that then? What about running a show? What are some things that that people can fix or make sure to include that might not be initially obvious? Because I remember my first show was just like 8 tricks, and there was very little transition in between them. There were no callbacks or foreshadowing or anything like that. It was just like a bunch of tricks.
So I think the first thing to say is to be kind to yourself. I don't know why it took me so long to realise this. I think I was watching Matt King at the Session convention a few years ago, and I think there's a tendency to kind of look at a performer like Matt King and be like, how am I going to ever be this good? Like, so tight, so funny, everything is mwah. And then it suddenly, I think it was in the interview that he was giving, and it dawned on me, like, we're looking at a guy who's done this for 30 years, and he's done the same act pretty much for 30 years. And we're judging ourselves based on that. So I think the first thing is, okay, be kind to yourself. The second thing is that you don't build a house immediately, you build a house a brick at a time. So what is your end goal? If you're wanting to be somebody who builds and writes shows, then okay, you think about it in terms of stepping stones. So, today might not be the same as tomorrow. In fact, we want to kind of keep moving forwards with the momentum. So when I approach things like the cabaret, I'm always wanting to look at things and evaluate and think, okay, how do we make this better for next time? How do we reinvest resources into it to kind of scale it? So it started as it started in a cellar in a bar. When we first started the show, the only thing that we had, in fact, we didn't have anything to start with. We literally had performers who rocked up, and we performed on a stage, and there wasn't anything. Then I think one of the first things I invested in was like a backdrop. So I think we got like a black it's not the one you see now, but like a black backdrop, and then we got some tables, and then I think we got lighting, some, like, in the words of Danny Buckler, Zoom style lighting, Zoom show lighting, which we kept for quite a long time. In fact, that's one of them right there now.
Oh, nice! It's a good piece of kit.
And then then I had the red curtains made that you see there. There we go.
Red curtain.
Yeah, so I had those made. And then just invested in more stuff and just kept the staging and just kind of adding to the show and investing profits back into the show to kind of make it better. And these are just kind of all bricks in building the house. They're all things that you can do to add to the production value, that you can add to the feeling of the show. And I think just keep learning from what you're doing. Don't be settling for what you've got now. How can you make changes to improve it? But that's 1%, 5% better every time.
It's a really good way to think about it, actually.
I think that's probably the most helpful general advice I can give in terms of, if you're writing a show, your show will be different to anybody else's, and I would encourage you to do things differently to the way other people do stuff. Don't just copy what you see, because otherwise you end up with the same as things. Do the things that you enjoy, and do the things that build the things in the way that you want to build, the vision that you've got. That's something I'd encourage. Like, think about it in terms of vision and direction that you're going, and think about where is it you're heading towards. I think that's quite a helpful thing in business in generally, rather than just thinking about, I'm just going to do these gigs and get this money and pay my bills. If you've got a bigger vision in mind for where you're going, then you can put things in place, stepping stones in place to get to that end goal.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about like structuring a show? Like, we've had a whole lot of really helpful stagecraft lectures on this as well. Like, what are some of the things that you've learned, that you've implemented in both how you structure your own shows, and also like when you're giving advice to other people, directing and stuff?
Yeah, I think there are so many different ways that you can structure a show. I think go and study theatre. So go and study people like Stanislavski and Brecht, and I've not got any formal training in theatre or drama, but like I say, I read a lot, so I will go and read these things, watch and observe and look at theatre productions and reflect and think about the things and keep notes. Some of the reasons why we structure the show that we have is from entirely pragmatic reasons. So the structure of the cabaret, for example, is a show in 3 acts. So Act 1, interval, Act 2, interval, final act, and then the close of the show. And there's different things that happen as well. So there's sort of what happens before the show in terms of the way people are gathered and welcomed and seated. is what happens at the end of the show, in the sense that we go into the audience and we go and meet and chat with people. These are all intentional decisions. Practically, the reasons why we have 3 acts, not half a show and an interval and the other half a show, is because we want to partner with the venues that we work with. So lots of our shows are hosted in cocktail bars or kind of cabaret venues, where it's important to help those businesses to with their trade. We want to partner with them. So we have 2 intervals, which means people can buy more drinks, more food. It also means we can reset the stage for the next part of the show. So these are highly practical. When I'm thinking about, so I often compare the cabaret. I'm always asking in advance for the kind of rough set. Oh, Tommy's going eat some lunch. I'm always asking for like the rough set lists of performers, because then I will make sure there isn't an overlap between performers. We have a newcomer spot at the beginning of the show, which is there as like a placeholder to give people stage time. Because otherwise, where do you get your stage time? We don't have like comedy clubs for magic necessarily.
No, we do have one coming.
Well, yeah. So I kind of want to keep that open for people. But yeah, I try and think carefully about the balance of acts. So if you look at the bill, the lineup of shows that we've got, the lineup of performers. So next month we've got Brendan Rodriguez, who is, lots of manipulation, kind of very stylistic, very musical, visual magic, quite straight. Then we've also got, we had a below average amount of feather boas in the show for this particular month, so we invited Romany.
What are feather boas?
Like pink like feathery like scarves and things, and elaborate ball gowns and feather things sticking out of his head. So we have Romany coming, the diva of magic, who is fabulous. Absolutely love Romany. So 2 amazing performers, and Romany is kind of very cheeky and comedic in his style, does lots of visual magic as well, and so to then balance that show out, perhaps we need something a bit different. Maybe we'll have some mind reading, or something a little bit more serious, or I don't know. I've not really thought so much at the moment about what I'll do, but I try and then complement the other performers that are on the bill. Kind of February we had Alex McAleer, who's kind of a cheeky mind reader, and then we had Tom, who's much more like surreal comedy magic, much more like sketch comedy. So we're always trying to kind of strike that balance with the content in the show to give variety. And this is assuming that you've got a show that is a gang show, is like an ensemble cast.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're doing your own show, if it's just a solo show, then that will have a particular style, whether that's moody and serious and dark, or whether that's light-hearted and a comedy. But you'll want to hit different notes throughout the show. You'll want to have stuff that has different texture and different emotion behind it. You'll want stuff that's perhaps more intimate for smaller audiences. Things will play to a bigger crowd. At the beginning of the show for the cabaret, for example, I try and do something that kind of incorporates everybody, that people can kind of get warmed up with. Sometimes I'll do something for one person on the stage that is just for that one person, that everybody gets to observe. It's just creating those different textures and moments in the show throughout.
Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I am conscious of the fact that we are going on for a long time.
That's fine. I don't mind. I just I might start running out of energy in a minute and start to...
Yeah, I remember in my interview with Francisco, he had half of a fever, and he was in his onesie in front of his computer. It was late at night, and we went for 3 hours, and at the end he's just like, I need pizza, and I was like, oh, okay, I went too long, so I don't want to do that again. We've braked.
Yep.
We've eaten.
Back.
We're back for part 2.
Okay.
So
6 hours left.
Yeah. So part 2, and then we've got part 3 and 4 and 5 still to come.
Yeah. And then there's the New Zealand episode where you fly me out to New Zealand and we do the interview there.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so far we've kind of been looking very much at the past and the present, but I'm very interested in the future. Okay. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's impossible to answer that question, but what are your goals for your business, for your own personal growth as a magician, where do you want to go?
So I'll be 27 in 5 years' time. So 5 years' time. So I mean, you know kind of where I'm heading, and kind of slowly inching in that direction. But the kind of vision that I have in business kind of holds across all of the different things that I do.
Yep.
So and that's kind of a way of me evaluating that I'm on the right track, which is to champion and celebrate the art and performance of magic. So we want to help raise the standard of magic, not just in the UK, but I guess internationally. So I want to be part of that narrative. I want to help performers as they create, and help them to develop as, you know, all-rounded great performers. I want to give the public the chance to see great magic. So we love what we do, and I was sitting in the Blackpool Magic Convention Theatre a few weeks ago just thinking how much I love what we get to experience, and want people to experience that as well. So that's kind of the vision. And so the kind of next, I guess the next big milestone, which I'm hoping will happen within the next year to 2 years hopefully, is potentially somewhere on the lines of opening a headquarters for magic, essentially a theatre, a hospitality venue, somewhere where we can offer people exceptional hospitality, exceptional food, drinks, an all-round experience of being warmly welcomed into our little world, and a theatre where we can not only kind of put on shows, but where we can also produce shows and create them as well. So where we can create them from the bottom up. So it'll be used for like studio space, where people, rehearsal rooms where people can come in and we can work on shows, directing and producing shows. A public facing arm to it, where there are shows every week where people can come and see great magic. Hopefully where we can host people's resident shows. So hopefully, you know, people can come and do a week, a 2 week run or whatever in a bespoke theatre. And okay, if we're going for like wishful thinking, the dream would be to have something, I guess, not dissimilar to either the Castle or the Chicago Magic Lounge, something like that, where there's a big stage for kind of cabaret shows, and then a second theatre which is purposefully designed for close-up theatre. So like a parlour, kind of perhaps tiered seating, so people get a really great experience of close-up magic in a theatrical format. So 2 theatres, then a hospitality space, and then so there we'd have public shows, we'd run training. We didn't really talk about this actually in the tips for business then, but about continued professional development. We could talk about that maybe. But yeah, chance for magicians to learn, workshops, classes. For certain people, it might be they become and produce shows. Just a kind of a centre for elevating and championing the art of magic. So that's kind of where we would like to work towards. I'd also like to branch out into producing bigger shows as well. I think I'd really like to, I'm considering the idea of kind of expanding outwards and doing the production side of things for some bigger stages. Not myself as a performer. Other people would be performing, but to manage the production direction, perhaps. That's a possibility.
Awesome.
And personally, from a personal development point of view, I'm hoping. I think I've been inspired quite a lot recently. So I was really inspired having gone to the Session Convention in January. Really inspired at Blackpool, not just to kind of think even bigger in terms of the business world of what I'm trying to do and kind of continually pushing forwards, but also myself personally as a performer, and thinking about investing more in myself. I think I've spent a lot of time in the last few years investing in other people and kind of growing shows that are there to help other people. I've not spent a lot of time myself developing as a performer. Most recently, I've started writing a competition act, which I've never done before.
Which is amazing.
It's getting there. Thank you very much. But I'd like to, double down on that a little bit more and invest more seriously in my own development. So I'm hoping, if things work out, I'm hoping to go and visit Campus Magico in Madrid with the incredible Fernando Figueres later on this year. I'd love to go and spend some time with Tom in Sweden if I can make the dates are tricky, obviously, with kids and some holidays. I'd love to go and visit Germany, go and visit some of the theatres they've got there for Close Up Magic particularly, and maybe sometime go out to the States to go and visit all the different theatres and things that are popping up there as well. Just to kind of to invest in myself, to develop as a performer, and to explore that side of things.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, no, just not ambitious, just slightly. Just a little bit.
Just a teeny weeny bit. Okay, well, let's talk about professional development from a business point of view. Like, how do you look at that, and how should other people kind of factor that into all that stuff?
Yeah, so one of the things I guess we briefly touched on maybe earlier and in the previous video was the idea about, if you're going to be in business, to kind of do business properly. So don't work at cost value. You've got to have mechanisms in place that you can have profit and grow the business. Even if you're reinvesting, even if you are drawing a small salary and you're reinvesting all that money back into the business or back in investing into other people, I think without that profit margin, where you don't have the ability to make those decisions, if you don't have some kind of pool of capital, you have very few strategic options available to you in terms of how you can leverage that money.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first thing. But I think one of the things I've taken from teaching is this idea of CPD, and there'll be loads of other businesses where you have CPD, continued professional development. So in all sorts of industries, and I think it's always seen as one of those things that's like, oh, CPD is like, today we're going to learn how to, I don't know, use a fire extinguisher, or today's CPD is on health and safety. It's on something like, it's often a bit patronising, and it's like, is this really continuing my professional development?
Yeah.
And I think it feels like the value you get from those sometimes is not great. However, the idea of continuing professional development, I think, is really great and spot on. I think as performers and as business owners, I think having a pool of, having part of your budget within your business set aside for professional development is really important, and highly recommend it. So that could be a budget for going to a magic convention every year, for inspiration, for networking. Although, let's not be lazy about it. Let's not just stick that on expenses and say, oh yeah, this is my continuing professional development, I'm going to a magic convention. It's like, no, you really, are you just actually there to have fun? Which is fine as well. But what I mean is being a bit more strategic, a bit more purposeful.
Yeah.
So whether that's, I know Nicola Arcane, for example, she's been at the show recently, and I know that she's invested in going to Korea. She's been in Korea for a month. Learning from, and I keep forgetting this guy's name. He's the guy who won the competition 2 years ago. We can edit in, we can dub over.
Can we?
In fact, I might look.
Feel free to look it up.
I might look it up. Look it up.
I need to check we're still recording as well.
Okay. Look it up. Okay, what's the fastest way? This guy Nicola's thing. So Nicola has essentially invested not only money but time in going out to Korea and learning from someone who is an expert in manipulation, and she's invested that in herself as a performer, and she's come on leaps and bounds. It's incredible what she's doing, and so I think again you could be purposeful investing in yourself. Now, from a business point of view, that could be investing in a business coach and having somebody who's going to mentor you and help you with the business side of things. That might be investing in kind of some kind of training course, whether that's learning about marketing or learning about social media. It may be that you think, actually, the thing I need to develop most is my performance. So it may be finding a mentor who's a magician, investing in that. It may be that you're going to go to something like Campus Magico or Tom Stone's course in Sweden, or one of the other various other courses and things you can attend to learn more about the art of performance. It may not even be magic at all. It may be you are going to invest in stand-up comedy lessons or improv lessons, or you're going to go invest in like lessons in theatre and drama. You could even enroll in a university course. There's all sorts of things you could do to kind of upskill yourself within your business based on what will be strategically useful to you and how you can better develop as a performer.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it, because I feel like, at least from my own perspective as a magician, I'm always personally developing, but just out for the pleasure of it rather than for any strategic benefit for a business. But it definitely has a whole nother dimension to it when you're like, okay, this is actually I'm gonna see returns from this investment rather than just personal satisfaction from it.
So I found the guy's name as well. So the guy, Nicolas has been studying with Hyun Jun Kim in Korea. So he won the one competition 2 years ago. He's an expert manipulator, and he's been putting Nicolas through the paces. And I know that she's been out for a month, and is then hoping to go out again for a longer stint as well.
Wow.
So and there'll be people, there'll be all sorts of people around you, and you can always shadow people, and if you find there are people who you like what they're doing, as long as you do it, people that you respect, as long as you do it in a way that is respectful, and kind of you can say, could I come and shadow you, or could I come and learn XYZ from you? They can say no, and that's entirely within their prerogative. But they might say yes, and it's a great way of learning from being mentored by somebody else. But yeah, just be respectful about it. Be considerate. Don't kind of just go like, oh yeah, I'm going to come and steal all your ideas. Don't steal ideas either. Do your own thing, but learn what you can.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested. I often ask this question in the interviews, and it's deceptively deep. But why do you love magic?
Oh, okay. Deceptively deep.
Well, it can be shallow if you want. I'm sure there are some like kind of surface level things.
Just like tricking people, just like no. Why do I love magic? I think for me, it kind of stems from that kind of visceral, emotive kind of beginnings in magic. Whilst I can remember seeing a grandparent or a family member teach me a trick, my brother, I remember, taught me a card trick, which I think was the first thing I sort of performed. But I think the first kind of really visceral experience of magic was when I went to the IBM show I mentioned, where Fred, who was the magician I was working for as an assistant, so I was about 9 or 10, he knew everybody in the show. So before the show, he was kind of introducing me to people. I'm like, oh, show Chris something, show him a trick. And so they had close-up performers, before the show in the reception. And I remember, it might have been Kavari. I can't remember who. It might have been Alan I think it was Kavari, but it could have been somebody else who did a coin trick, and in my hands, in their hands, and I can't even remember what it was. It would be something like coins across or something like that. But I just remember it's more the emotion I can remember rather than the kind of what was going on in the trick that kind of sits with me, about just this sense of wow. And similarly, that world of theatre where it's just kind of a sort of feeling inside, like a rightness, like wow, this feels really, really good. So I think, it's the sense, the feeling that you get from it, and we don't often get it very often these days as magicians, especially the more read you become in magic, the more you study it, the more you experience the kind of working side. We don't often get those moments. We've become a bit jaded, I think. But that said, I have, like recently, both the Blackpool and the session, have had moments and experience just like, wow, this is great. Sometimes it's been vicariously through other people who are with us, who are experiencing it for the first time, and like,
so good. And
I'm sitting there watching them and going, yay. And there are other things where magicians have put in the time to think about who their audience is, and so they've made the effort to create a plot line that subverts or kind of branches away from the normal pathway that you're expecting, that gives you that feeling of surprise and that feeling of, oh wow, that kind of rug pull moment.
Yeah.
So, and it's such a special feeling, and I love being able to share that with other people and getting to see other people experience that as well. So,
yeah, that's a great answer. Okay, well, this is kind of different but kind of similar. And I know you probably have a few answers to this. What's one topic in magic that you wish more people talked about?
So, what to pick? I could pick a number of things. So, I think if we're going to be specific, so as you know, that I run kind of workshops and lectures called Stagecraft, and each month we have a different focus. So the idea being teaching different aspects of stagecraft that can be applied across different disciplines within magic. So there may be scripting, directing, we might look at choreography, we might look specifically at misdirection, how you implement that. We've looked at writing comedy, looked at all sorts of different things, blocking, naturalness and composition. We've looked at connecting with your audience. Nicola shared that with us. So there's all these different aspects, and I think I could say generally, I think the more we think about stagecraft and the more we think about these topics and how they can be applied into close-up or into stage, I think we as a community will raise our standards massively. We'll see the quality of our performance go from okay to, you know, the same level as kind of more established theatre. But if we were going to be even more specific, I guess I'd like us to talk maybe more about character and world. I think probably would be the two things. In fact, I'll probably do a workshop on these at some point.
Yes, that would be great.
So character building and world building. So if you've ever done anything in the realms of improvised storytelling, tabletop games like tabletop role-play games like Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, where it's all about world setting, world building, and character building, and kind of, or if you're an author, if you write stories, it's all about the setting for those things and drawing people into that world. And the reason I think this is important is because I think if you've really given careful thought to the character that you are presenting on stage or in close-up, and let's not be lazy about it, let's not just say, oh, I'm just kind of a heightened version of myself because I'm a close-up performer. Okay, if we kind of spend just a little bit more time thinking about the kind of the values, the feel, the aesthetic of that character, then a couple of things start falling into place. We become a unique person. We're different from the kind of other generic magicians out there. And I'm not saying you have to be, you know, a character act. Yeah. I'm just saying giving a little bit more care to the way that we present ourselves as ourselves, or a slightly different version of ourselves. So it means when somebody's booking you, they want to book you and not just a generic, you know, I just want a magician.
Yeah, there's some point of difference in some.
You want them to say, I want the great Caleb Soprendo Simpson.
Don't know why they'd say that.
That's the new act. He's going to have like a sequin jacket. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. Sequin purple jacket. Watch this space. So there's the characters, there's the aspect of a unique character. Morgan and West said it really succinctly when they started in magic, they figured that they can either stand out from the crowd by being better than everybody else. It's like the vertical pathway. So if these are your performers, I can be better than everybody, so people will book me for that. Or you can go horizontally, so instead of being the same, you can be different from everybody else. You can either be better or different. And they chose to be different. So they obviously had a character act where they were time traveling magicians. It was all set within this Victoriana kind of period, and they stood out. There was no one like them at the time. So the other thing that if you've got a really good grasp of character does for you is that everything starts to then self-select. So the material that you perform it becomes much easier to select what you perform. So if you are, for you it's straightforward. You do, kind of crazy card stuff, and it's lots of gambling stuff and lots of very technical sleight of hand. If you started doing sponge bunnies, it's like, well, what's going on? Like, it doesn't, and that's a really obvious example. But then there are people who do bits and pieces of everything, but it's still a bit vanilla. It's a bit, don't quite know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you think about people who've got for me, the people who stand out are always the people who've got really well-established characters, and the material matches the character. So your material selects itself. Your script starts to write itself as well, because you start to find a voice that character speaks in. And I don't mean an accent. I mean it could be an accent,
like a way of speaking.
A way of speaking, whether they use large words, whether they use short words, whether they're kind of crass or rude, or whether they're very sophisticated and eloquent. All these different sort of elements start to become much easier. Script writing becomes easier, material selection becomes easier. So that I think is something. And then the world side of things. The world is the world that character exists within.
Yeah.
So then you get into the world of the realms of what is normal, what is not normal within that world.
More like the magic rules.
Yeah.
Like the
yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of is stuff like, the performers who say, well, I'm only going to use organic props, so I'm going to only use things that I'm going to use in the real world. Whereas you get other magicians who it's perfectly acceptable that I'm going to use a sparkly box because we've established a world, and we're essentially, we're storytelling, we're creating theatre, and it doesn't work when there's that disconnect, when you're not bought into the world, you've not bought into the character, or it feels a bit amateur.
Yeah.
Because there's not been enough thought, there's not enough detail, there's not enough texture that's gone into establishing that world, establishing that character that they live in.
And you also have to fully commit as well. You can't kind of just be like, oh, half yourself, half your character. You've got to be there, otherwise the audience is going to be so confused. Fully commit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really good. I think, generally, and even just the idea of stagecraft, I think should be talked about more rather than I think the reason is because the vast majority of the magic market are hobbyists, and so as a result, and most people aren't as super interested in doing it kind of professionally or at a high level.
Yeah.
And so as a result, all the products and the things that sell become tailored to them. And then there's less of a focus on things that actually are beneficial for performing.
Yeah, we live in a toy industry.
Exactly.
It's kind of gadgets and gizmos and kind of fun things to play with, and we play with it for a while, and then it gets forgotten. I think if you're a professional, then you pick material and you create material that is going to work for you, and is going to go into your show, or it kind of fits with your character, fits the world. That is going to be used on a professional stage. Yeah. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird industry in that respect.
Yeah, it is.
It's the kind of the meeting of two worlds, isn't it? So you have, I think sort of magic conventions are quite unique in that respect. In that, so I guess you probably don't get things like theatre conventions or music conventions where you get loads of professional performers and kind of people who are at the top of their game, and then people who are
just getting into it,
or just kind of hobbyists, or it's a bit of a weird. So
it's so accessible, right?
Yeah,
that is one of the biggest upsides of magic. And
I'm also not dissing the toy industry aspect of magic. I love that as well. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why kind of some people get it. Maybe even I kind of enjoy it in the first place. Is just the excitement of
the methods
and these things that do these things. It's like, wow, this is cool, and that's great. And by all means, we should absolutely enjoy that aspect of it.
And they're still definitely reflected in the Blackpool purchases, isn't it, Chris?
No comment. No, I only buy things from Blackpool purely for.
It's going to go straight into your set.
It's going straight into my set, yeah. Purely for clear, calculated business decisions. None of. I've used everything I've ever bought from Blackpool.
Yeah, extensively.
Extensively, yeah.
And made it your own. Yeah.
Yeah. No waste here. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up, so the questions are becoming more rapid fire. Who is one magician who hardly anyone knows about, who you love, and who more people should go and check out their work?
Oh, that is... Okay. I could name a number of people here. I'm going to pick Sam Fletcher.
Nice. What a great choice.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce them to the people watching who have not heard of them?
Well, comes the Curious Cabaret in June, and you can come and see for yourself. Sam is a lovely, lovely guy, amongst other things. So he's a lovely guy. He is, I guess, by profession, a comedian and a writer for comedy. So he writes comedy for other artists, other professionals, for TV and for stage. Is a very funny guy himself, and he's also a magician, and he has some of the best kind of comedic kind of moments, like just really well written jokes, and just so much effort put into callbacks and through lines. It's like just brilliant, and just lots of physical comedy. So very kind of quite slapstick. I kind of love it. It's very, very funny. Laugh a lot when Sam's performing. He's not a full-time professional magician. He's got a comedy show that he hosts in London every month, so you can go check that out. But if you get to see a chance to him perform, I just really like what he's doing at the moment. It's really good fun. Great compare as well.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Oh, cool. Well, what have we got left? Yes. So a few interviews ago, I was with Jack Ty, and he used this interesting phrase which I've stuck with in all my other interviews, which is like his Mount Rushmore of magic, or like the kind of top 5 people he's been influenced by in his journey as a magician. So who would be on that Mount Rushmore for you? What top 5 magicians have influenced you with their thinking the most?
So Lance Burton, from like an early age, watching his stuff on TV. I got to meet him a few years ago at Blackpool, and just seeing the way that he conducts himself, like the way he kind of values the people that are on stage with him, and he looks after kind of people. So Lance. David Blaine was massively influential for me as a teenager, and kind of really got me hooked on kind of direct and powerful sleight of hand. And I think I was like a mini David Blaine, or I want to be David Blaine, I think, as a teenager. Yeah, so David Blaine, I think I got a lot of street cred from performing some David Blaine type stuff when I was about 17 or 18. Tommy Wonder, never met him, but obviously, Tommy Wonder, brilliant kind of performer, theorist, everything. Go read his books. Probably Tom Stone as well. Tom works with Tommy quite a lot, and I've kind of been able to work with Tom a few times and just sit and listening to his thinking and theories on magic.
Did Tom Stone work with Tommy Wonder a lot?
Yeah, so I think they kind of knew each other. I think Tommy wrote a thing, an article that you can buy on Tom Stone's website, Ward Magic, and it's all about how you write an act and how you write a show, and then Tom has made some amendments to it and things. So I think it's worth checking that out.
We can talk to him about that.
So Tom Stone, really great performer. Love his thinking on ensembles and how you create shows that feel like a whole show rather than distinct acts. Watch this space for more of that. And the fifth person who's been most influential in magic. There's so many people. The list could probably be about 4 times as long. I probably, he'll probably appreciate me dropping the name in. I probably would have to say Mark as well, Mark Oberon. So I've known Mark now for 20 years, maybe. No, sorry, 5 years. I'm only 27. 20. I've known Mark for quite a long time, and Mark has, I think, given so many ideas to the magic community, and I've worked with Mark and seen lots of his thinking and attention to detail with respect to choreography and just kind of pushing himself to create really direct magic. So Mark is a good friend and has taught me an awful lot. Yeah.
That's a great list. Awesome. Okay, well, we're on to the closing questions.
Yep.
I asked you before we were out on your bookshelf because I always ask the question, if you can only read 3 magic books the rest of your life, what are you picking? But I've added, if you have some suggestions, book suggestions for non-magic related books as well, for business or for other things. So let's start with the non-magic related ones and then go into the magic books. Unless you want to do it differently.
No, it's all good. So I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna use this as a non magic one, even though it kind of is magic. So this book was, I read this quite recently. This is Unreasonable Hospitality. And this is a book about the world's #1 restaurant, 11 Madison Square. 11 Madison Square? Yeah, I think that's right. And it's about the guy, Will Guidara, was the general manager at the restaurant. It talks about sort of his journey and how he got there, and how they went from not being the best restaurant in the world to then becoming the world's best restaurant. And it's all about their approach to hospitality and how they just went above and beyond looking after and caring for their customers. And some of the stuff they do is insane, but you just kind of read it and be like, this is amazing. And this is probably the book I have scribbled the most in. Like, there's so much pencil and annotation in this book than any other book I've read. As part of business, I have a lot of emphasis on caring and looking after people, making people feel welcome, and practicing good hospitality. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this. And as we talked about earlier about wanting to open a venue, this was really inspiring. So that's something I'd recommend reading, especially if you're in like the hospitality industry doing close-up and things like that, or cocktail receptions. It's worth having to think about some of these things. And then this book by Tobias Beckworth. So Tobias is, or was, I'm not sure where he's up to these days, worked with Jeff McBride as Jeff's manager and director. It's been a while since I read this actually, but this book's called Beyond Deception: The Theory and Technique of Creating Original Magic. So there are no tricks taught in this, so this is why I'm claiming it as a non-magic book.
Okay.
But it's all about, it's kind of from the eye of the director, but it's got lots of really useful exercises for how you create character and how you create original ideas and original material. It's a really easy read. It's not difficult, but that's worth a read. It's worth
Beyond Deception.
Beyond Deception. There's another volume as well which focuses on something slightly different. So that's 2 books that I recommend. There's a whole bunch of other business books. Start with Why by Simon Sinek's really worth reading. Anything by Seth Godin is worth reading on marketing. I could go on for ages.
Awesome. Okay, then what about magic books? What are you reading on the desert island?
This was really hard. Really hard. So we're going with Magic of Ascanio.
Yes.
Alphabet Theory.
There you go.
Naturalist, Transient Motion.
Intransactions.
That's the one I mean.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. This is for the theory big brains, but this is, if you can apply what's written in here, go you. So check that out.
Yeah.
If you've not got a copy, get a copy. This was massively influential on me. Again, there's no magic in this, but maybe I should have switched those 2 around. This is one of the astonishing essays from Vanishing Ink. This is called Evergreen by Steve Cohen. And if you don't know who Steve Cohen is, he is the Millionaire's Magician. And he basically has a resident show. So it's the same show in the same venue most nights of the week. And it's all about being evergreen rather than continually having to change what you're doing or going all over the place. And it's just it's basically his journey and how he got to where he got to. And this has kind of been quite inspiring for me in thinking about creating lines of business that are evergreen, that are residency type models where people come to you. It's why I've spent a lot of time building shows rather than being a gigging magician per se. So I recommend, and so you can read that. In like one sitting, easy. And then last one, there's 2 volumes of this. I've only picked up one off the shelf, but as mentioned earlier, Tommy Wonder. This is volume 1 of the Books of Wonder. It's got loads of really great magic in here, like really great tricks, but also loads of incredible essays.
The essays are the best part.
On magic and on performance. There's so much really cool stuff in here. The kind of mind movie idea, and just I need to go and read this again, to be honest. 2 volumes. There's probably lots of tricks that you know of that perhaps you didn't realise they originated with Tommy Wonder. So really highly recommend. I think this has been reprinted as well recently.
Oh yeah.
So it used to be really hard to get copies of this, but I think it's been reprinted, probably by Vanishing Ink, because they reprint.
Yeah, though I think it's who's the publisher?
Stephen Lynch's Hermetic Press.
Hermetic Press. Oh yeah, that's owned by Penguin, I think. Is it Penguin or is it Vanishing Ink? Doesn't matter. Anyway.
So yeah, that is.
Tommy Wonder is my favourite magician.
Yeah, go check that out. If you've not read that, go and spend a
lifetime in the books.
Study that. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, moving swiftly on. What is your biggest pet peeve in magic? Going to a more downward turn before the upward turn at the end.
Biggest pet peeve in magic.
Could be a small thing, could be a deep underlying issue, anything you want.
I think it's probably kind of stock lines and it's probably stock line, not respecting your audience, basically not respecting your audience's time. And I think that affects the whole industry. Like if somebody sees a bad magician, they typically say, I don't like magic.
Yeah.
If you hear a bad musician, you don't go, I hate music. You just stay ahead of it. But we're such a small industry, I think if we need to respect our audience, respect their time, and look after our audiences.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, final question. If you could go out for dinner with any magician from history, who are you picking, considering there's no language barriers? Anyone you want?
That is not a question I can think to answer in 2 minutes.
But who's the name that just pops into your head when you hear that?
Gosh, it could be all manner of people that would be just really cool to go and sit on dinner with. I think, let's probably take advantage of the fact that let's go with somebody who's not alive anymore, because in theory you could have dinner with somebody who's still alive. So
yeah,
let's play the game. Let's play the system.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody like Robert Houdin.
Yeah,
I think would be quite fascinating. Yeah. I think I've got a big orange tree sitting right here. He, father of modern magic and all that. I think it'd be really fascinating. I think there's a lot of methods and ideas that he kind of utilised that are just absolutely genius. And obviously it's kind of been one of the big people who shaped the direction of magic as a performance art right from the beginning. So that would be my pick.
That's a great pick. All right, well, that's pretty much it. This is your chance to plug anything you've got going on, any links I can leave, anything that
Sure. So if you're a magician and you want to get better at performing, then come along to any of our stagecraft workshops. We have them every month at the moment, prior to the Curious Cabaret, so they're on a Monday night, and they sort of fill that Monday night lecture evening. If you're a member of the Magic Circle, obviously they meet on a Monday night as well, so sorry in competition there. But we're in Nottingham, so if you can't travel down to London, then you can meet us there. But we have a different expert essentially each month teaching an area of stagecraft. The next one we've got coming up is on March 31st with Brendan Rodriguez, called Rhythm. So it's focusing on musicality and rhythm in the construction of magic. Then let me just quickly look at my calendar. We have got May, we've got a workshop on choreography with Mark Oberon, and then June, I think we have a workshop with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, how am I missing that one?
I think we've worked with me. So that's Stagecraft. You can come and join us for those. Really lovely to welcome you on. And we have a great community of magicians here who are supportive of one another and want to help each other develop. So come meet the team. If you want to come to the show, Curious Cabaret currently runs on the first Tuesday of every month at Berliner in Nottingham. We have, again, the lineup for acts next month. We have Brendan Rodriguez and Romany. Then we have Steve Price and the Oberons. We have Sam Fletcher, I've already mentioned once in the chat, and Tom Brace. And then July onwards is TBC. So we have some other big names coming later on in the year, but I can't announce them just yet.
Some very cool names.
Yeah, you're looking at the board. So that's Curious Cabaret. And we have a new show starting in 2 weeks' time called Slight, which is a theatrical close-up show also at the Berliner, which is 30 people seated around a close-up table, an ensemble cast of magicians. Tickets, you can find tickets for anything at chriswilder.co.uk, or if you go to curiouscabaret.co.uk, that will direct you to our What's On page, which has got all the events as well.
Awesome. Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, look at a handshake.
Thank you for inviting me around.
You're welcome.
And you guys should definitely check out Chris's work. I mean, if the last, I don't even know how long this would be, probably almost, I reckon this could be a record.
3 hours?
Probably.
To 3?
Well, regardless of how long it's been, if you've managed to get through the whole thing, then you're a trooper and you should check out Chris's stuff. So yeah, thanks for having me, Chris.
Great, you're welcome.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.